Oh, you cannot hide. I see you on the back row under the mezzanine in the shadows. You are here. Okay, whether you're here or not, it's time to start another episode of the Paul Leslie Hour. So how's it going, folks? I guess we have plural listenership here. And we've got a great show for you today with a very special guest, Ms. Toni Holt Kramer. Oh, yes. You're going to recognize this girl's voice. This woman's voice. She's a lovely lady, and she's made a remarkable experience. Her life is an adventure. I think one word that does a great job of explaining her, communicator. She's a great communicator and a lot of fun to talk to and listen to. Oh, Toni's rubbed shoulders with, well, just about everybody. And when you hear her in conversation with Paul E. Leslie, well, you'll understand why Toni Holt Kramer makes for a perfect guest on this show. It's a tough one. Paul's the interviewer, but he's interviewing an interviewer. Real quick, the Paul Leslie Hour is made possible by people just like you. You can assist in the efforts to really promote the show and get all of this content out there as we look ahead towards year number 19. God willing. Yes. Simply visit www.thepaulleslie.com/support, and we thank you for supporting and listening. Now, let's not keep this lovely lady, Toni Holt Kramer, awaiting. I just know Paul is chomping at the bit for you to hear her in this interview. So let's all enjoy.
Hey, how are you?
Well, I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
I'm just fine. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm really delighted by this opportunity to interview a woman with tons of versatility and connections. Toni Holt Kramer is an author and philanthropist. She's been called a woman of major versatility. Her path has included working as a model, television personality, on-air columnist for the news, magazine columnist, and this is astonishing to me. Toni Holt Kramer has interviewed upwards of 3,000 people. So thank you on behalf of our listeners from all over for being our special guest.
It makes it sound like I never slept, but it's true. But of course, that spans over 30 plus years, almost 40 years from the time I started, right straight through. But of course, you left out one thing.
What's that?
Also, in the last, I would say, 7 years, I've become a political activist as well. So
right.
Before I was just friends with all the people, and I think I was the last person. My husband and I were the last civilians, so to speak, as we say in showbiz, right? The last civilians that were received in the Red Room at the White House the last night that President Bill Clinton and Senator Hillary Clinton were on duty. And then shortly, so I think that, and then I was the last person to shake hands because everybody was leaving. I was late to a very special party for George W. Bush at the Library of Congress, which I had to go directly from the Clintons' White House to George W. Bush, who was going to be inaugurated the next day. And guess what? I think it's Guinness Book of Records stuff. I never got to wash my hands. So I shook hands with two presidents within 45 minutes or an hour.
No, that is something very impressive.
So, and then I got very involved with President Trump in 2015, and I started a group called the Trumpettes that wound up not only being in America, and having members from all over. As you can see, I'm really a libertarian in the sense that I go for who I like and who I believe will do the best for the country. And so consequently, then we started a chapter. We were so successful, started a chapter in Australia.
Wow.
So we have members all over the world, Europe, Asia, you name it. So that's a long way from my first gig working at the Copacabana.
Well, it's a fascinating story. Now, just a moment ago, you were mentioning your husband. Congratulations are in order on your 30th anniversary. So,
I'll say. The fact that he could put up with me that many years makes him superhuman. I mean, living with me is not easy because I'm one of these people that's, okay, don't you think it would be time for us to get to Washington because I'm kind of bored doing Hollywood every day? And he goes, yeah, great idea. So anyone who can, I'm so grateful to him. He's made my life so beautiful. I have the best marriage, thank you, God. And he's been an absolute gem, and thank God he's still continuing to be healthy and fine, and I'm very grateful to him.
what do you think makes you and Robert such a good fit?
Well, I think we're completely opposite.
Ah,
I'm the extrovert, and he's quiet and reserved. So it's kind of like, one of us is out there, carrying on, and the other one is the, really sensible factor behind, who says, okay, let's just, think about this for a minute. He's very, and he's a good sport, and he has he has great love for my mother because my mother and I were inseparable, and I don't have sisters or brothers. And so my mother I would always say if I met someone and they wanted to take me out, I go, oh, I come as a package deal. Take me out, take my mother with me. And actually, Bobby and my mother became so close that one day she said, it's a good thing you met him first because I would have married him.
that's
So
great.
there you go. Yeah, it's very blessed.
Well, what advice would you give to those married people out there who are listening?
Oh God. You can't give advice to anybody in this world today. I mean, there's no such word as that anybody listens, number one, and that anybody is enough of a guru to give advice. I mean, we have people that are in strong positions in countries all over the world, and you wonder, do they have any brains? You know, so I certainly will never see myself as someone to give advice. I think the only thing I can say is love is wonderful, but you have to like each other a lot, and you have to respect each other, and you have to care about each other. And that's the only thing I can say. If you don't have those things going for you, you really have nothing else.
Right.
Because there's nothing that's going to give you any foundation.
Now, as we were saying at the top, you've interviewed more people than most in journalism, and I just want to name some of the people. Frank Sinatra, Bob Hope, Tom Cruise, Merv Griffin, George Clooney, Clint Eastwood, Johnny Carson, John Travolta. I mean, it really just the cream of the cream. Maybe only Larry King has interviewed more people. What has speaking to so many people taught you?
That you have to listen.
Mm.
I've never, ever, I guess it's a gift, something that God gave me as my talent. I never could work with a script. I never prepare questions. I tell everyone if I go on somebody's show like yours, I say, please do me a favor. Do not tell me what you're going to talk about before we get on air, whether it's television or radio or newspaper or anywhere else, magazines. I don't want to know. I want to talk to you from what I believe, my heart, my head. And I think that with all the people that I've met, I've learned so much. I really have. I mean, I was greatly honored to be invited as a friend, as someone they liked, to so many private parties of these celebrities. I remember I'll go back in time when Glenn Ford was getting married, must have been, probably 30 years ago, just before me, or a little bit, but maybe 31, 32 years ago. And he was having a wedding, and it was like 11 o'clock in the morning at his house just behind the Beverly Hills Hotel. And if any of your listeners don't know who Glenn Ford is, I suggest strongly you go to Turner Classic Movies, or you go on Google and you'll see that, he made that famous, he's made so many great films in his life. Of course, he's gone now, but I remember I was invited to the wedding, and it was the who's who of Hollywood. I wished we had cell phones then. I didn't have that. Certainly didn't bring a camera, but it was everybody from Frank Sinatra to John Wayne, you name it. I mean, the royalty of Hollywood was there, 11 o'clock in the morning. And when I got there, there was press from all over the world lined up outside the house. And I drove up with my car and I gave it to the parking attendant, and I started to walk towards the front door of the house, and everybody's yelling, "Hey, Toni," because I had just been in Hollywood a short time then, not that many years. And "You can't go in there. You stay out here with us." And I go, "Hey guys, I'm invited." And I spent the wedding there. I had my lunch there. I got home. I had a couple of glasses of champagne, and I remember going home in the afternoon and falling fast asleep and getting a phone call around 6 o'clock at night from Glenn saying, "Toni, can you come back here right away?" I said, "Why? What's the matter?" And he said, "Well, we have so much food left. And, I thought if you could come for dinner." I said, "But this is your wedding night." He said, "No, I'm inviting you and Victoria," that's another friend, "over. And we'll just sit around and talk." We talked till 2 o'clock in the morning. So, that's the I had great relationships with wonderful people. Thank you to Frank Sinatra I don't think I would have had a career without Rock Hudson. He really turned out to be one of my best and dearest and most loving and loyal friends. And Frank Sinatra, who gave me every hint in the world and helped open some doors for me. And, I've been very, very blessed to have wonderful people step up to the plate and say, "We think you're great. I never was mean. I broke a lot of stories, but I always try to inject some humor in them. And I never went after anybody with a dagger. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I remember when Dean Martin had a fight with his wife, I guess at the time. It was after his lovely wife, Jeannie. He was married to another girl for a couple of years. And I remember I got a call from somebody in Malibu and said, "Hey, there was a gunshot at Dean Martin's house in Malibu." And I said, "Really? What happened?" Well, I got on the phone, made a few phone calls, tracked down that his then wife, was leaving for Hawaii that night, and he had been sent to a hospital, or he went to some hospital in Century City, and he had I think a small wound to his hand. And so I called his manager the next day, because it was like an air day, Monday on the news for me, did the early evening news and the late night news. And I said, "What can you tell me?" And he said, "Oh, nothing to say, nothing to say." So what I did was I just said, "Dean, I heard you wanted up for a midnight snack." And I said, "The next time you decide you're going to have a sandwich, I think you should use a knife instead of a gun." Well, I thought that was, and I don't know who shot the gun or what. There was nobody was hurt really badly or anything like that. But I guess it was just like, well, that, as you would have it, that next night I go to dinner. There was a club called Pips, and Pips was the place. Everybody went there for dinner and played backgammon. Backgammon was the rage. And I go to walk in between shows with some friends, and who's sitting at the bar alone but Dean Martin? And I thought, "Oh, I'm out of here." I turned around. I said, "I'm not going in. I'm not going in. I don't know how he's going to feel." And he sees me and he says, Toni, come over here." And he starts slapping his knee. And he says, "That was hysterical. That was the funniest thing I ever heard." I loved his sense of humor. So, I've had great stories, great friends, great Arnold Schwarzenegger, loved him. Sharon Stone, all these wonderful, wonderful, wonderful people that I always said the bigger they are, the nicer they are. It's the ones that take themselves seriously who really aren't that important that are a pain in the you-know-where.
Goodness, that is so, so true. That has been my experience.
People can be awfully wonderful, and I think so many of them appreciate that the people that have made them so famous, rich, important, whatever you want to call it, but they try to entertain and give back. And I'm very, very grateful to all the people I've interviewed. And we're thinking, because my co-host with this, my partner on television for a number of shows, we did the series Talk of the Town, and we're thinking about taking it because we have, my goodness, we have a whole show of every astronaut that
Wow.
ever was alive. I mean, you name it, it was done. And we have, not just movie stars, but I have politicians and people that were famous, Governor Schwarzenegger when he was governor, people like that, and of California. And we're thinking of taking it and kind of putting in a little clip time, out of a 30-minute show, maybe take 7 or 8 minutes where we upgrade we do the show, but we talk about where all these people are or what they're doing now, or if they're not still sucking in oxygen, I mean, there's so many stories that we can talk and bring people up to date. People love that.
Absolutely.
They love to know what's happening.
Well, this might be a tough one, but who has been the best person to talk to, the most enjoyable?
I wouldn't even attempt, because everybody, it's like saying, who's the most beautiful woman in the world? It's your personal, at that moment, it's this one, it's that one, it's the other one. I think I've enjoyed every one of them. Maybe that's what made it so wonderful for me, is out of everybody, almost everybody, I could say, that I've interviewed, I've come away thinking, this was really special.
Was there anyone you wanted to speak to, but you just didn't get the chance to?
Let me see. Off the top of my head, I would say Sophia Loren.
Ah.
I never did get to meet her in person. We had a lot of mutual friends, but she was always one of my favorite. Adored her and loved her. There was something about her, of course. It used to be that Phyllis Diller used to call me the blonde Sophia Loren, so maybe I was prejudiced, but nevertheless, I would have loved to have met her and interviewed her. I've seen her in person on stage, but never did meet her in person.
When you were mentioning Frank Sinatra earlier, did you find that he had an electricity about him, a kind of aura?
Oh, he was magic, I don't know what you would put to it. He was magic in so many ways. He was kind to people. He was thoughtful. He was the most talented. I mean, needless to say, he could also, he was so nice. I always say, I remember my mom and I used to go to a restaurant before I was even working in television or anything. And I remember how he treated all of the waitresses. We all used to go there on Friday night. It was in Palm Springs. And we all used to go there on Friday night because they fly lobsters in from Boston. And it was special night. And Frank was there usually every Friday night that he was in town with a small group, a small entourage. And my mom and I would be there sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes. And he was so kind to all the waitresses and everybody. He was mad. He was one talented, brilliant, great, just They don't make those kind of people anymore.
Hmm.
They don't make those kind of stars anymore. I mean, when you think about it, you can watch an old Frank Sinatra movie on Turner or any of those old stations, and you're as caught up in it as you could ever be. And yet, I mean, name me more than, I mean, who could you say today, at least I can, who has that kind of special talent and charisma that you really just think, wow, you know, I wouldn't miss their movie. You know, yeah, Tom Cruise still has it. He has a certain something special. I don't know. I guess maybe because my career was so much more focused in the stars that I really appreciated when I was a little girl. I mean, I covered my bedroom walls with pictures I tore out of magazines, and my mother would write to the studios and, and say, please send me an autographed signed picture. And then I had a great opportunity when I was in Hollywood. I got a call they wanted to screen test me at Columbia, and they told me that I wouldn't work so of course I was very young. I wouldn't work for 3 years. They would train me, school me, I'd become whatever, but I'd be on salary, and that eventually they thought I would get to have the penthouse that Rita Hayworth had and my Brit had and Kim Novak was in and blah, 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 blah. And my mom said, you're too young, you're not doing that. So I said, Mom, but that's what I wanted all my life. And she said, fine, you'll go back when you're older. I said, they won't want me when I'm older. So, being a good girl, I didn't do it.
Well, I will tell you, one of the things that I almost thought of it as a sign, I was thinking, I would like to do an interview with this Toni Holt Kramer. And then I was picking a movie to watch at night, and I ended up on a Woody Allen film.
Yeah,
And,
everything you want to know about sex, but we're afraid to ask.
right. And there you were.
That was my first, probably next to my last. I hated working as an actress. But I was a panelist. I had just come to Hollywood. I was maybe working a year or two, maybe a year. It was probably in the 70s, early 70s or something, because that's when I really started. And he said, and I remember it was some kind of a panel, and I remember you had to, you had to rehearse, you had to redo things. I never want to ever have to use a script in my life. I have no talent for that. I have to be me. I have to just talk, and I would never make it. I realized probably could have taught me to react to that, but I feel my emotion goes to just interviews and talking to people.
Well, there's somebody who has a showbiz background and a political background, and I think it's kind of interesting that you and President Donald J. Trump have both appeared in a Woody Allen film, and I'm hoping you can tell us, it's an interesting little connection, but tell us about the first time you met in the flesh, in person, President Donald Trump.
Well, first of all, I have to tell you that we're both Gemini.
Aha.
We're 2 days apart. He's the 14th, I'm the 16th. The first time I met him was New Year's Eve. My husband and I had gone to Palm Beach, and we were with some friends who were members of Mar-a-Lago. And it was 2011 going in midnight to 12, or 2010 going into 2011. I don't remember. And I was introduced to him for the first time. And Bobby and I got to talk to him. And he said, he asked where, did we live there? And we said we were there. We had just bought a house there. We had decided that we'd like to divide time because I have family there. And so he said, well, you must join the club. And I said, well, as soon as we get our bearings and get ourselves organized, maybe we will. And we did a few months later. And we really didn't get with it too, because they closed usually Mother's Day, the day after Mother's Day. So we really didn't have too much time the first year. And then we started to go. And I was at that time just starting to get, I mean, I always liked Washington and I always wanted to be a Washington columnist and this and that. Not always. First I wanted Hollywood, then I wanted Washington. But I have to say, as I got to know him and see the efficiency that he had trained all of his people, obviously, because, success, you run a good business, it starts with the owner, with the top guy, with the top woman. It doesn't start at the bottom generally. And everything about the way the staff at Mar-a-Lago were, they would remember your name. They would remember what you like. What you like to eat, what you like to drink. I was so impressed with the way the club was run that I said to Bobby, I think President Obama was in office. And I said, let's see, when was that? Yeah, I guess Obama came in 2008?
I believe so.
So he was in office, and I just didn't like the way I thought the country was going. And I started saying to my husband all the time, I'll bet you if Donald Trump was president, he would do a great job. And Bobby would say, well, why didn't you tell him? I said, well, so instead of telling him, he used to come down every weekend. He would leave on usually Sunday night or Monday morning, fly back to New York, and then he would come back on Thursday night or Friday and spend the weekend. And I said, instead of saying it to him, I would pick out articles because I'm very involved in my head. And I like to track the economy. I like to track politics, and I don't think you can do one without the other. You have to understand both in order to be good at either one, or at least somewhat informative. And I started, taking special things that I would read about this happening in the financial world, or this happening in Europe, or this happening somewhere else. And I'd write to him, and it was so funny. I just dropped this little note. Dear Mr. President, this was around 2013 now, and it became like a running gag. I mean, every weekend I brought another article, and of course we became friendly, and he likes Bobby so much, and he was always wonderful. Melania is fabulous. She had a great sense of humor. Anyway, we just became friends, and then I would say to him, you've got to run. You just got to run. You're the only one that can save this country. And you're the only one that can get this thing really going, make America better, greater. And if we weren't in the crap we're in now with this high inflation, and I feel so sad for so many people. A girlfriend of mine was telling me she just came through Brentwood this morning, and she said she couldn't believe how many people were homeless on the street. Then she had gone yesterday to the Beverly Center. She said, you wouldn't believe all the tents on the street.
Yeah.
So I said, come on. She said, well, haven't you gone and looked? And I said, no. I said, when I'm in LA, I really don't. And she said, well, you need to. And I went, okay, I will. And I was so taken aghast by that, because I didn't realize, I knew it had been bad, but I didn't realize it had moved in that close. So it was so different, when Trump was in office, and I don't care. I mean, Trump is, I believe in my heart. I mean, he's a Republican in a sense, but he's really a humanitarian. I mean, he really cares. I think the greatest love of his life is this country. It has nothing to do with whether you're a Democrat, a Demorat, a Republican, a Libertarian, whatever you want to be. It doesn't matter. You want to be one thing. You want to be safe. You want to go to a restaurant. You want to have dinner. You don't want to have somebody put a gun. My girlfriend was sitting in the restaurant last year, and someone got shot. They came in the afternoon at lunch in Beverly Hills to rob some guy of his watch. And so, I mean, look at the difference. Oil was $2 and change. The eggs and bacon and staples for people were half the price they are today. I think we all question the health of the president. I think we all question the, God forbid, I would say, reality that the vice president, who seems to be a master at word salad, could wind up being president. I mean, it's kind of scary out there. So I've decided, I said, well, hell's bells, I mean, I was retired hoping that everything would now be fun and I'm going to take up golf. And all of a sudden I'm going, I can't do that. I guess I've got to get back with the Trumpettes again. And believe it or not, we have so many Trumpettes because there's no rule. You don't have to be a Republican. You can be a Democrat. You can be a liberal. You can be whatever you want. It's about really saving our country and the people. I'm so afraid that the middle class will vanish. I'm so afraid that so many more people will be forced on and homeless. I think people that never thought they would be. So, yeah, I have great confidence in him. I'm very saddened to what happened to Ivana. I think it's hard to believe that anybody could die such a difficult death. I mean, you can only imagine somebody falling and God knows, being there alone, and maybe your imagination can take you a lot of places with that the pain and everything else. But the reality is that the kids are great, and everybody's kids are great. We all want all the kids to be great. We want all the kids to have a fair chance. We want everybody to have an opportunity to be successful, go to school, learn, teach what you want to teach in school, but teach two sides.
Right.
Don't teach one side, because it's not fair. Kids have to learn. You can't educate kids with one direction and then expect them to grow up and be fair-minded. Let people make up their own mind about what they care about. And if any of your listeners want to join me, it's Trumpettes. Go on the internet, trumpetsusa.com. Just put in. You don't have to disclose anything other than the fact that you love America, and that's it.
Well, I have so enjoyed this opportunity to talk to you. I know you have an appointment coming up.
Yes, I do. But it was a pleasure to talk to you. So
absolutely. It was a pleasure. And if you could, please say hello to Ruta Lee for me.
I will. I see her all the time. I talk to her constantly. We are as close as bread and butter, peanut butter and jelly. What can I tell you? We are close I can't remember not being close. We've traveled the world together. We've worked together. She's the best in the world.
Great. Well, you are both great ladies, and I'm really, really honored that you would be a guest on the show. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much. It was my pleasure, and I hope your listeners enjoyed it. And I say thank you all for listening, and I hope to talk to you again someday. Okay?
Likewise. Until next time.
Yes, indeed. Until then.
God bless.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for stopping by today. If you enjoyed our program, consider telling a friend about it. The Paul Leslie Hour is made possible through people just like you. So you want to keep the show going, right? Go to thepaulleslie.com. That's thepaulleslie.com. Click on Support the Show. And thanks to everyone who contributes. Performance of the intro music is courtesy of John Primorano, The Entertainer, written by Scott Joplin. End credit theme music is courtesy of John Primorano, the traditional song Corina Corina. Your announcer is Dan Gold. Hey, that's me. The show is hosted and produced by Paul Leslie. And we'll see you next time on the Paul Leslie Hour.